BDS, Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions, is causing controversy among many communities of people. The movement targets Israel, boycotting them through not purchasing products out of Israel. As of right now, many have made the claim that BDS is anti-Israel and anti-Semitic due to its target being a primarily Jewish state, while on the other hand, you have people that support the BDS movement as they see it's a front to liberate Palestinians and get Israel to obey international law set in place by the Geneva Convention. This movement has divided a lot of people solely based on their opinions of Israel and America's foreign policy, but there's so much more than meets the eye with this issue that it could be argued for hours, even days. After the events of World War II and the Holocaust, European Jews were in a time of extreme struggle. Millions of Jews were killed in the Holocaust, and survivors were strewn out all across Europe. The United Nations moved to allocate them a new homeland within the nation of Palestine in May of 1948. Come the year 1950, between 700,000 and 750,000 had either fled or were expelled from their homes and were not allowed to re-enter the area that would become known as modern-day Israel. In 1993, in Oslo, Norway, secretive strides were made among the Palestinian Liberation Front and the Israeli government to end the bloodshed and find a middle ground that was agreeable to both parties so as to solve the conflict once and for all. The PLO attempted to negotiate the idea of a two-state solution, the creation of an individual Israel and Palestine as a mainstream way to end the conflict peacefully. The Oslo Accord was signed on September 13, 1993. After the signing of the Oslo Accord, no Palestinian state was ever brought around, and in September of 2000, the Second Intifada uprising broke out, quickly descending into a period of heightened violence between Israeli and Palestinian troops. This violence continues to this very day. Many Palestinians consider the Second Intifada a movement of fighting for national liberation, while many Israelis see it as a terrorist organization. It was in an attempt to stop this that a wall spanning 708 kilometers was erected around the Gaza border so as to keep out these Palestinian fighters. A movement to boycott the Israeli government has been created. BDS, or Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions, is an organization protesting Israel and its treatment of Palestinians. It works on three levels. First, citizens are encouraged to boycott business and products from Israel. Second, companies and corporations are encouraged to do the same. Lastly, should the movement grow large enough to obtain influence on the government, economic sanctions may be placed on Israel, either limiting or restricting trade. All of this is to put financial pressure on Israel. Military aid will not be withdrawn, but should BDS succeed, Israel will be forced to back down and return Palestinians their basic human rights. It's a particularly difficult situation as the United States alliance with Israel definitely has its benefits. For starters, Israel would be a first responder in the Middle East. If any wars were to break out, Israel would immediately be on the scene to either dissolve the situation or engage in combat. Israel is also a large help in securing oil for the United States as they protect Saudi Arabia from attacks, therefore through proxy securing extraction and shipping of crude oil to the United States. European Jews were in a time of extreme turmoil after the events of the Holocaust, and it came as no surprise that when a segment of land was offered to them as a new homeland, they took it. Everything they've been through, though arduous, does not give them the right to restrict and take away basic human rights from Palestinians. That does not give them any right to bar Palestinians off from their homeland, not allow them to see their families, and regulate food, power, and water in the Gaza Strip. It should also be mentioned that the Israeli government has violated the Geneva Convention many times. In particular, Article 49, which clearly states, individual or mass forcible transfers, as well as deportations of protected persons from occupied territory to the territory of the occupying power, or to that of any other country, occupied or not, are prohibited, regardless of the motive. With this being stated, and seeing as the Geneva Convention is regarded as international law, many countries have been calling for Israel to follow the guidelines brought on by the Geneva Convention during UN meetings. Punishment for mass violation of the Geneva Convention should most definitely be in order. Overall, the BDS movement is a legitimate movement that solely aims to place pressure on Israel so as to get them to give back basic human rights to Palestinians and to get them to comply with international law. The organization is not anti-Semitic as many claim. They don't aim to abolish the nation, only to get them to return the rights of Palestinians. A Palestinian we interviewed, who would prefer to remain anonymous, states, "There are some things that are complicated and some that are simple. What people need to understand is one of the simple things is the fact that Palestinians are being treated like second-class citizens, and the complex stuff is what we do about it, not whether it's true or relevant." He goes on to say, "I think BDS is a good idea. It will not destroy Israel economically. If that was the full goal of it, it would be an absolute failure." Obviously, the Israel-Palestine conflict is an incredibly complicated issue, and we weren't able to cover everything here. The important thing, however, is the complexities of the issue shouldn't scare us away from talking about it. We'll leave you with a final statement from our anonymous interviewee. "People think of it as there being two countries, and Palestine is this little country that's separate, but most Palestinians travel back and forth, and many of them live in legal Israel in slums. We were the biggest refugee population in the world, but we weren't registered as refugees.